Right? That would be the exception. That backbiting another is more sinful than leaving obligatory prayer. Some scholars differed because they said, well, but if you take into account backbiting that hurts another's feeling, not just that they dislike, but it hurts another's feelings, or in which there's some harm to relations, for example, then there's basic consensus about this ruling. And many scholars, Imam Nawawi, Imam Abdul Hayy al-Laknawi in his work Naf'ul al-Mufti wa Sa'il, and others have discussed this at some length. And in the works that deal with Ribat, backbiting. Why? Because hurting another, you have no right whatsoever to hurt another person. The Prophet ﷺ said, الظُّلْمُ ظُلُمَاتٌ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Right? That wrongdoing becomes manifold darknesses on the Day of Judgment. When you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are based on mercy. Right? That's, and though it's very serious because, there's also Allah's justice, but the rights of others are based on justice. And do not expect mercy in them. The Prophet ﷺ asked, who's a bankrupt person? The bankrupt person is the one who comes to the Day of Judgment, having done good deeds, yet they wronged this person and cheated that one and hurt this one and so on. And eventually all their good deeds will go away and they'll be left with the burdens of the sins that they accrued through wronging other people. Right? That's a spiritually bankrupt person. And your marriage may be a means not just to material bankruptcy. I don't know how mahars are here, but in the US particularly, there's the $100,000 mahar. Right? Actually one of my friends, his 3 brothers are doctors. Each of them paid, and this is in the late 90s, each of them paid $100,000 cash up front. My friend, who poor guy with a student of knowledge, he was getting married, he made sure no one found out about any of this until he was married. But then he made the mistake of telling his wife, right? And she felt cheated. But he didn't have the money. His brothers did, because, But spiritual bankruptcy can result from marriage when you enter into it and you're not ready. And a lot of people get into that state. I don't know how it is here in the UK, but most of the American and Canadian scholars that I've interacted with concur that divorce rates in the Muslim community in North America are higher than those in society at large. And divorce rates amongst religious Muslims are higher than those amongst irreligious Muslims. Right? Because our understanding of deen is perverted in many ways. Right? We don't see religion as being to have sincere concern for Allah and sincere concern for Allah's creation. We don't see religion as being a means of mercy in our lives. Rather, we see religion as like putting on punching gloves and who can I give a religious uppercut to, right? It's like some form of thuggery, right? And if you're still not unaware of what marriage requires, then the first thing you have to do is prepare yourself for marriage, right? And that preparation has a number of levels, right? And it's a serious thing. It's one of the most critical life decisions, right? And most people who come and they ask about marriage, you ask them, so they tell you they're getting married next week. What do you advise? I say, so what have you read about marriage? And they look at you read about marriage? And the answer is nothing. Okay, so have you attended some programs about marriage? No. Do you have a marriage contract ready? Isn't it just ijab and qabul and that's it? So yes, but there's more to it than that. Right? The number of times I get asked I don't conduct marriages, right? The number of marriages I've conducted in my life, 0, deliberately. The number of marriages I've facilitated in my life is 0. Alhamdulillah, it's good to have friends who are scholars, right? Because anytime someone asks me about marriage, I say, where do you live? I say, Toronto? I say, okay, what part of Toronto? East End? Go to Shaykh Ramzi Al-Ajam. West End? Shaykh Zahir Bacchus, he's in Brampton? Yeah. MashaAllah, he's a wonderful Shaykh. Go to him, right? They complain whenever I say, why do you keep sending us? I say, because you do it, I don't. Right? And it's a sunnah to specialize. Right? And they'll give me this like nasty look, because marriage is not a fun thing to set up, right? You want to give people advice. Marriage trouble, I never do marriage counseling. I'll give them general religious guidance, but the actual active counseling, I say, go to Shaykh so-and-so. Right? Shaykh Zahir, and we're old friends, I've known him for 18, this is the 19th year I know him. We went to university together, and it's the 18th year. He says, why do you always send me your marriage problems? I said, because you handle them. Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek, and may Allah reward you. Right? But people just show up last minute and say, I'm getting married tonight. Do you have a marriage contract? I get friends who are like Shaykh types, like all over. I actually now have a PDF file, even have it on my iPad, right? So someone needs it, just send it. It's in my Gmail account too. I just look up marriage contract .PDF, and Google search is really cool, right? And forward it. But this is not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be prepared for these things, right? And that's part of getting married, that prepare, take it seriously. Nothing is going to affect you more in your deen and in your dunya, right? In the general case, then whom you marry and how you marry and when you marry. And an intelligent person takes the means in order to be able to be successful, right? And so you prepare yourself, right? And it takes time, and it requires a certain degree of seriousness. Now, Imam Ghazali gives a very interesting framework about marriage, right? That there's 4 considerations that one should keep in mind about marriage. The first of these is your motive behind marrying. Why are you marrying? Right? And people tell you the most amazing things, especially when they're being honest with you, right? When they lower their guard a little. And I used to be in student journalism, so you learn how to get people to lower their guard a little, right? So I went to California. A good friend of mine works at Apple, very wealthy, but he's now 39. He's been previously married a couple of times. He says, "See, Faraz, I want to get married." I said, "No kidding," right? He's always talking about marriage. And this was pretty late at night, right? And we were kind of chilled out, because we just convinced a common friend to take a shower, to take a ghusl actually, just randomly. Because we've discovered that he has problems making wudu. It takes him 15 minutes to make wudu. So I said, make wudu in 30 seconds. I said, when we'll all watch. So he made wudu in 45 seconds. So I made him do it again until he went down to 30 seconds. Because 15 minutes to make wudu is wasting water, wasting time, giving yourself a lot of stress. And it's better to pray 2 rak'ahs than keep washing your face, right? Then he said, but ghusl takes me 45 minutes to an hour. I was like, okay, we're going to make you do ghusl, but this time we're not going to watch. Right? So I told him, you have 3 minutes to make ghusl. It took him 5. He came back, said, I'm done. So go back in again, do ghusl, you have 2 minutes. And we got him down to 2.5 minutes, so okay, we'll leave you. So we're kind of chilled out. And that's when my friend says, "See, Faraz, I got to get married." I said, "So what are you looking for in a wife?" He says, "She should be religious." I said, "No, but what are you really looking for in a wife?" He said, "Can I be honest?" I said, "If you wish." So I'm looking for someone who has the looks of Kim Kardashian, and if she can have some of the akhlaq of the awliya, that would be really nice. Right? That's priorities, right? Another friend, and his marriage is on the rocks. We should make dua at the end. Include him in your dua when we make dua at the end, because poor guy. When he's getting married, he said, we asked him, "So what are you looking for in a wife?" He said, "She has to wear hijab." I said, "And then what?" "She has to be really beautiful." I said, "And what else?" That's it. As long as she wears hijab, all that matters to me, she has to be really beautiful. I said, "What about religious interest?" He said, "Look, if I want to have religious discussions, I'll come to you and Abdurrahman." Right? Sidi Abdurrahman Malik. And these are the kind, and especially when people are honest with themselves. Because usually, when they're like, Sidi Faiz comes up and says, "What are you looking for in a wife?" "So she should be pious, and she should be this," and they'll tell you all the right things, right? That's not your motive to marry. It's not what you tell Uncle Jamil who's really religious. "Yeah, Uncle Jamil, I'm looking for someone who's mashallah of deen and taqwa and akhlaq and all this," right? My sister was was sitting with some sisters, who are university age. My sister's, about 4 years younger than me, and they're asking her for marriage advice and so on. She asked, "What are you looking for in a husband?" One of them said, "For me, it's very simple." I said, "So what is it that you're looking for?" She said, "It's very simple. As long as he has 2 eyebrows, I don't care who he is." Right? As if having 2 eyebrows really helps maintain a relationship, right? And people have the weirdest considerations. He has to be at least 5'7.5", because she's 5'7", but less than 5'11.5", because otherwise I'll look really bad with him in pictures. Unless he slouches, right? And he has to be no less than 160 pounds, but no more than 185. It's like you're buying a sheep, right? Right? And even sheep, there's more leeway than that, right? And be realistic, right? And it's not just a parroting, right? Be honest with her. Why are you marrying? And secondly, what are you looking for in a spouse, right? What are you looking for in a spouse? But you have to ask, but in order to answer the question, what are you looking for in a spouse? You have to look very carefully at the first question, which is, what is your motive to marry? Right? And what does it mean for me to marry for the sake of Allah? What am I seeking out of marriage? Right? And it's something that you have to resolve yourself. Books help in this. They help you give a deeper religious understanding of what are our spiritual motivations in marriage and our worldly aspirations therein. But you shouldn't just say, yes, that's what I'm looking for. Right? It has to come from within. Right? That's the first thing. Clarify your motives for marriage. And then once you do that, before you consider who you want to marry or what you're looking for in marriage, look at yourself. The second consideration in marriage is not whom you marry, it's you. Right? The person marrying, i.e. you, yourself. And where are you at when it comes to being a suitable husband or a suitable wife? Right? And be clear and clarify for yourself, what do I need to be a good husband? What are the qualities that are required? And then look at yourself. What do I lack? And one of the sunnahs of the Salaf, of the early Muslims, with respect to marriage, is that they used to be very honest about themselves when it came to marriage. And how they were. Abu Talib al-Makki mentions in Qut al-Qulub that one of the early righteous, he went to this man asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. And he was a bit too honest. And Abu Talib al-Makki mentioned that you shouldn't be that honest. Right? So he said, I want to marry your daughter, however you should know that I'm a man of exceedingly bad character. I get angry very quickly. And I lose my temper, in an instant. And I am unreasonably jealous. And I am stingy beyond imagination. And and I'm careless and reckless and inconsiderate and this and that, and I have a miserable disposition and this and that. He went on and on and on. Finally, the girl's father said, "Oh, so-and-so, stop." He said, "If Shaitan had a daughter and I heard that you were proposing to her, I'd warn Shaitan against you." Right? You don't have to go to that extent about being negative about yourself, but you have to be honest with yourself, to yourself. That okay, if marriage requires upholding good, it requires good character, it requires responsibility. What am I lacking in that? Right? And then you have to work on yourself. To be honest, let's say a lot of people have trouble with controlling their anger. It may be that okay, don't get married right now to Brother Zubair. Control your anger first, right? Control your anger first. And some of these things are really sad realities. You have a problem controlling your one of the big problems that destroys marriage in our time is pornography, right? And a lot of people have this lackadaisical attitude that, well, once I get married, it'll be fine. And I deal with a lot of marriage questions on a daily basis. It ain't so. if you can't control your desires before marriage, you won't be able to control them after marriage. And this applies to both the brothers and the sisters. Just to be brutally frank, right?